When this was first brought to our attention that the CRA was approved, I mean, anybody that looks at this, any of the council members, myself, my first look at this is that, of course not. We're not. Why would we approve a tax abatement for an apartment complex with 39 units? It's not anything that I've ever supported since I started as administrator. It's not anything that I've supported 11 years ago since I started as mayor. Now, when you look at an apartment complex, such as the one that was abated here, that is something personally that I would never support. And you look at it and say, well, okay, well then how can this happen? And really, just to kind of take the whole process and try to simplify it, what happens is that there are tax abatements. And we say, okay, most of that money that's collected at a tax abatement or property tax, it goes mainly to the schools. So if we're going to give a tax abatement over a 10-year period, I believe it's 10 years of over $800,000 that the schools would have to give up, you would say you would have to get the school's permission, correct? And in this case, that didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? So we go to our law director, go to the administrator, go to the law director and say, we want to find out, I want to find out, council wants to find out how this tax abatement could be given if it never came before council and it never came before the school board. I'd really like to know. So we had our law director go in there and then also to make sure that we're doing things properly and that there's no appearance of impropriety because decisions that we're making here as elected officials and as a law director, obviously we're within the system here. So we also asked Chris Schmenk, who's from Bricker and Eckler, which is the leading law firm in this area down in Columbus, to also review the work that Tim Fox, our law director, is doing. And so we're not done with it yet, but what we found so far is that that decision lied with our economic development director. And what he's able to do under his interpretation of the ordinance was that if it's for a residential property, and if he could grant that tax abatement. Now the intent, as our previous president of council, Gerald Revolt, who wrote the law, and I've talked to him on at least a dozen conversations over this, is that it was intended for residential properties that were not big apartment complexes, right? So then the question is, let's say that somebody buys a house. Should it be done for a rental property? Well, how many units? Well, the ordinance that we have does not specify the number of units as far as what classifies as commercial or residential. And so the decision that was made by the law director, by our economic development director, was that yes, this would qualify as residential. It's 39 units, something I personally would never support. And my hunch is that our council members wouldn't be so excited about supporting something like that. Because why would you give away tax money to bring in apartment complexes? Because 40% on average of the residents in the city pay income tax. It could be because they work in another city, so they don't pay income tax. It could be because they're retired, so they don't incentivize necessarily apartment complexes. I personally do not, because it doesn't assure revenue is coming in. If any revenue comes in, it's going to be property tax. So where we're at right now is we are looking through every paper, every document, everything that was done on the CRA. It's real clear that people are upset, because I'm upset. We have members of council that are upset, very upset, okay? And so we're going to make sure that everything was done properly. We want to know why it didn't go before this council. We want to know why it didn't go before the school board. So it is very upsetting. And I can assure everybody here that it's not some big conspiracy theory that somebody's controlling, like developers are controlling these elected officials. This is complete nonsense. Nonsense. But I can understand from your perspective, it's like, well, how can somebody do this? Why would you even do something like this? This is just like stupid. I That is my opinion. So what we're going to do is we have our law director, and he's reviewing it, and he also has one of the top attorneys in the state of Ohio that's also reviewing it. We're going to make sure that clarify the process and what was done and why it was done, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. That's what we're going to do. And so I'm glad that you folks submitted the petitions, but I can assure you that everything is being done above board, and we're going to make sure that it's done above board for our council and myself and our law director and our administrator, and Eric Bowles, our economic development director. He's done a great job serving the city, but also Friday is his last day because he retired. And so we want to make sure we have a proper and very thorough review of these CRAs, and I can assure you that there is just no, Ron said, common sense. Well, there's no, it defies common sense to give a property tax abatement on a apartment complex when we know that less than 40% on average are going to be paying income tax. Why would we give up the property tax? Why would we do that? That's what our council members are asking. That's what I'm asking. We don't think that anything at all was done due to impropriety at all. One thing that I know so far is that when you look at interpreting a policy, that you can oftentimes, and I see this, where you can interpret it in a number of different ways. You can have two people looking at the same situation, and I want everyone to be real clear that I have, with Eric Bowles, he has a great deal of integrity. He has served the city very well, and I consider him not only an excellent employee, but a personal friend. And so there was no malintent on his behalf at all, not at all. There was no improprieties done by our city administrator, by our law director, by our council at all. I can assure you of that. But we're going to make sure that we're able to demonstrate that to all of you. And so not just Mr. Fox, but also Chris Schmink from Berger and Eckler. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and we're going to find out why this went through. But I can tell you, it really comes down to policies. Mary, as you come up and you start reading the Ohio Revised Code or our policies, Melanie, Ron, I mean, you're exactly right, but that's why we have attorneys to read this stuff and interpret it, and to make sure that we're all doing what we're supposed to do. So that's my opinion. That's what we're going to be doing, is having a very thorough review, but I can assure you that there is nobody up here that is being controlled by anyone, or that there's just no incentive. There's no incentive for anyone to take away money from the schools. Everyone here supports the schools. So we're going to find out, and Mr. Fox is doing a very, very thorough review right now, and he's being, the oversight is also being given by Chris Schmink as far as the opinion, the information that he's looking at. And so I do appreciate everybody's patience, and this petition is well noted, and to all of you that circulated it, your message is loud and clear, and we appreciate the time that you took to put this together. That's all I have.